Hello and a warm welcome to a very special podcast series, SheDiaries Trailblazers. This series is in conversation with trailblazing women from all across the world, from South America to North America to Africa to Asia and many other parts of the world. These are women that have accomplished levels that at one point in time many would have thought unimaginable. They have smashed many glass ceilings. They've surmounted many odds, and they have broken many silos, leaving a tale of inspiration for others to follow. My guest for this episode is one such woman, Her Royal Highness Lebogang Zulu, global economic strategist, BRICS Plus expert, award-winning entrepreneur and speaker, BRICS Women's Business Alliance Chair, Vice President Secoxo, Vice President India South Africa Chamber of Commerce, and many other hats that she wears. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us.
You know, your work spans economic strategy, entrepreneurship, and global alliances. What key experiences have shaped your journey? Because this is a very, very interconnected space globally.
It absolutely is. I started my career first 2 years. I studied LLB.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't doing it for myself, I was doing it for my father.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the second year, I said to him, please allow me to follow my passion. And of course, eventually said yes. And I then moved over to mechanical engineering. And it is absolutely amazing that even that 2-year stint of law and my career in engineering, how these two have played a significant role in shaping the strategies that I became.
Right.
More so in the global corridor, because it is not about being a global player. It is about having the ability to read the global rooms.
Right.
When this happens, how does it affect you? Where are we as a country?
Right.
And where do we then land as women? It's been an absolutely amazing journey. To a point that when I received the call from Minister Ntshavheni then, who said, you've been nominated to serve as the chair of BRICS Women Business Alliance, are you available to serve the country? Of course, my response to her was, when leadership is calling, who am I to say no? However, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Because at the time, I knew nothing about BRICS. I was minding my business in my factory, doing my thing, and suddenly, but as soon as you say, yes, I'm available to serve the country, you then have to close the gap. And this is where the systematic approach you learn in engineering comes in, because I've said, okay, now we need to close the gap of, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. There's no school of BRICS. You had to rely on a lot of research to understand what is it that you're expected to lead. What is the end goal and how you're going to get there? You cannot do that unless you understand what you're actually dealing with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And throughout this, have you seen, is the world getting better so far as gender inclusivity is concerned? Do you think we have been able to get rid of, if not all, but some of the prejudices?
I'd say yes and no. Because when you look at the World Economic Forum report, the recent statistics says to us it's going to take another 130 years to close the gender gap. This is a report published last year already. And I'm like, well, if it's going to take another 130 years from where we are, is it that we are playing with English words just to keep, to keep population busy? For me, we've got to separate what equality means in employment corridors and what equality means in economic corridors. So when you look at employment corridors, we've got women in numbers in different positions, whether political, corporate, it doesn't matter where they are. However, the issue of pay gaps is persisting. So you would say yes in terms of numbers, but when you hone in and actually look at the data, you then realize that, we're ticking boxes by increasing numbers,
Right.
but we're not applying the fair principles of hire me because I'm the best engineer in the world and pay me as you would pay for somebody my experience, my years of experience as an example. Yeah. So there's still that element of we still have to, as women, prove ourselves 10 times. So one of the key things that we're doing across the many hats that I wear is to say to women, perhaps a women-led development is actually the approach.
Right.
Perhaps we need to lead, but for us to then lead, we've got to change the mindset ourselves, understand what your value is, be prepared to negotiate, and understand that be prepared to walk away.
Right. Yeah, you are also the chair of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance in South Africa, and as someone who's leading that, how do you translate high-level collaboration among BRICS countries, particularly and also Global South generally, for creating more opportunities for women entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. So what we, in the 5 years, it's been a 5-year journey. BRICS Women was established in 2020 under Russia's presidency. We are now 5 years old. This is our 6th year. But what is becoming more and more important is to have more trade conversations, is to get more women traveling, and really engaging with markets in person. So in the last 2 years, there's been a lot of such activities. I mean, this year, under India's presidency, we've taken a conscious decision to say, okay, so by the time we present our annual report to the heads of states at the summit, it will be an annual report comprised not of only how many events we hosted, but what actual deals were concluded.
Right.
Whether they're in the trade space, whether they're in the investment space, whether they're even in the skills development space or capacity building space. But we want to see tangible results that when we present our report to the heads of states, that they would look back and say, we created BRICS Women Business Alliance as an economic cooperation structure, and these are the results, and not a social arm of BRICS.
You have a background in mechanical engineering.
Yep.
How's the situation of STEM among women in South Africa? Is there still a huge gap to be filled? In India, for instance, the numbers were not very favorable, but now increasingly the progress has been very remarkable. So we see more and more girls are actually joining STEM as both in education and also pursuing their careers in STEM, because that is required if you want to have to get more and more women into leadership roles, as also as in the talent pool in male-dominated industries.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We equally in South Africa, we're seeing beautiful growth. And more young girls, are getting into the science space, research especially. It's quite fascinating space. I've met young ladies that are in the spaceship space, and I'm like, okay. Engineering increasing numbers. I think one of the reform strategies that was deployed by our government a couple of years ago was to actually make mathematics compulsory across high school, because it doesn't matter what you will choose at the end, but mathematical principles apply across board. So we are seeing a beautiful increase of women coming up and taking up these very difficult very difficult industries, as people call it, because I guess difficult because there's more men and less women. But bravery is now coming up. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a strong theme in your work is moving from influence to infrastructure.
Yeah.
How does it translate into tangible opportunities for women-led businesses in South Africa?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you're saying that, because for a country like mine, where you look at colonization, we tend to look at it from a social perspective, but it's systematic. It's a systematic design, and it's a continuous process. Then it was social, but today it's economic, right? So what we are looking at is, insofar as building infrastructure that enables. We brought two young people here in this particular summit as an example. I would have loved to have brought more women. But these are young entrepreneurs. One is a young entrepreneur, one is a young leader that ordinarily could not afford to get themselves here. What foundation are we making it possible for them to come and be exposed? B, about 40 odd of our women participated in the Global Women Leadership Program run by BCCI. Of course, we could only pick 5. And of the 5, we at least have 2 winners from South Africa, right? Again, when you come back to the infrastructure and exposure, we are utilizing a lot of social media to expose these winners so that young girl that's sitting back at home that is like thinking to themselves, it's not possible. They see somebody that looks like them, right? In India, not even in South Africa, in India. And they start saying, hold on, this is doable actually. So there's various infrastructure platforms that enables. Not all of it is dependent on how much money you have or don't have. Yeah? Right. We use tools at our disposal to make it possible to enable.
Absolutely. And final question on artificial intelligence is, of course, the period of artificial intelligence, perhaps the most definitive period of technology in human history. Do you think artificial intelligence is going to actually help demolish entry barriers for women to get into entrepreneurship, and how do you think it's going to play out?
Absolutely. That's a beautiful question, and I love that topic actually, because AI is how you choose to use it. It is certainly not meant to displace your thought process. In fact, when you want to use it to display your thought process, you'll have problems.
Right.
I always say to people, it doesn't matter which platform, whether it's ChatGPT or AI Meta, whatever, there's always a little disclaimer right at the bottom that you got to verify yourself. But if you imagine AI as a tool that enables and supports administratively, as an example, it organizes you. If you imagine AI as a springboard, a thought process springboard, this is your thought process, this is the direction you want to take as a woman. This is where you want to take your business. You can actually utilize it as a springboard to test even your own thought process. So it is not something that disables, it actually enables, depending on how you actually utilize it.
Absolutely.
I think for me that it's an absolutely brilliant tool. The much of that we can have. Part of the reasons why we are here is we are looking for partners that will understand that many of our women, many of our girls in rural spaces, in townships, that do not necessarily have access, to basic internet. Wi-Fi is just not there, right? So we are looking for partners that would say, you've got digital tools that you wish to deploy. However, we've got a market, but this market has a gap. It does not have access to internet, which they will need to utilize your tool. Yeah. So we are looking at a cooperation that enables to get data in so people can access. But for this business that is enabling these communities to also extract value from their business by deploying their tools.
Absolutely. So it's helping smash the entry barriers for women that traditionally existed. Thank you so much, Her Highness Lebogang Zulu, for taking the time out and dropping by to have this conversation.
Thank you so much for inviting us. It was an absolute pleasure.